being there as well. And throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. That's America. Thank you for being there, and to all of our men and women at sea who protect our rights, defend our rights to speak our minds. Hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. Hope you're safe and sound by virtue of hearing my voice. You must have made it through. And I certainly hope that you're in a safe place wherever it is that you made it to. Well, listen, here we are, 63 days away from a presidential election. About 20 days away, 20 days and 1 hour away from the presidential debate, the first one on the 26th of this month. And the race has tightened, as I told you it would. Told you it would. Now, Hillary was out there running rampant about 2 weeks ago. Still looked kind of far out there last week, but now it has tightened. We're going to be talking about that and a lot of other things in the show as we go on here today. I want to thank a couple of our sponsors, Holmes Honda European, Bailey's Fine Jewelers, Tiger Axle, Milam Cars, along with Signature Cleaning for being there in this first segment of the show. I want to thank you so much for your sponsorship. And to all of you, don't forget to download the free CL Bryant app onto your Android or iPhone device. That's the CL Bryant Show app. Go to your app stores, download that, and hear us anywhere in the world. Now, the number 500, just a number you might think, you might say, but it's a nefarious number when you think about it is the number of murders that have occurred in Chicago just this year. 500. Later in the week, I want to speak with law enforcement here locally to see how that translates per capita to a city like ours, if we had that type of murder rate, or if, in fact, we are keeping up with that murder rate here locally per capita in the Arklatex area. 500. Yet there is no outrage. There is no marching down the street. Nobody's burning anything in Chicago over this, even though innocence, certain and true innocence. Last one was an 81-year-old man. True innocence has been lost in Chicago. Where's the outrage? You won't see it from Hillary. And I tell you something else you're not going to see in this presidential race from Hillary. No outrage over the shootings in Chicago. And you're not going to see her go down over these emails. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on in the program. And I'll tell you why she's not going to go down. Just trust me on this. I'm going to tell you why she's not going to go down. It's not going to happen. And I want you to understand something as well. Our guy, at least my guy, I'm going to talk for myself, my guy, and I hope that he's your guy, because actually the only other options is Hillary, Gary Johnson. Those are the only two other options. He need to Donald Trump, I'm talking about Donald. He need to make up his mind as to what his conversation's going to be on the illegal alien front. You can't go to Mexico and say this, come back to America and say that, and then 2 or 3 days later say something in the middle. No. Doesn't work. This is what makes us all nervous. And these are perilous times. We are definitely nervous about this election cycle. I've had conservatives actually telling me, you know what? If I don't stay home, I'm going to vote for Gary Johnson. What? Oh, yeah. That's just how confused and confusing this race is becoming. Did you get a chance to see the unfinished business and the all business segments on Trump and Hillary last night?
2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely unfair. They treated Hillary with kid gloves, and every other sentence that came out of anyone's mouth about Trump was something to bash him. Oh, the fix is in. Trump was right. It's rigged. Can I tell you why she's not going to go down? When I return, don't you go anywhere. And I want to also tell you something, too. I want to put this on your mind. My wife showed me something earlier today. I think Franklin Graham brought this about, and I'm going to investigate this and push this argument a little bit further when I talk to you on the other side of the break. But think about the coalitions that are being formed right now between progressives, whether they're gay, whether they're black, whether they're Latin, whether they are the uninformed, whether they're Hollywood, whoever they are.
1 minute.
Think about a coalition that is being formed. Think about the chronically unemployed. Think about the forever needy people that are beginning to show themselves everywhere, along with the progressive liberals of all stripes. Do you think that that's a voting bloc, if it truly takes hold, that can ever be destroyed? I'm CL. We'll be back with more CL Bryant Show in just a minute. TL back with you on this Tuesday after Labor Day, and I opened with telling you that the race is tightening. It is strange. The Fox News poll has Hillary up 2 points. The CNN Clinton News Network poll has Trump up by 2 points. That tells you, though, just how close this race is. It's a close race. But now you would think that there are some things that will derail Hillary Clinton. Should have already derailed her. She should have on the pink jumpsuit that Joe Arpaio furnishes for his inmates. But she doesn't. And no, I'm not trying to be sexist by saying it should be pink for her. But she should have on a jumpsuit regardless of what color it is. You and I would. But she never will. And I told you that I was going to tell you why. Let me tell you why. I've alluded to it over the last 2 years that I've been talking to you, but I'm going to tell you why again. I'm going to share this with you again because it's more clear. It's even more clear now to me than it has ever been. It's more clear that Hillary will never go down, and if we don't play our cards right, you're going to be calling her president of the United States. Now, Hillary's emails were known, of course, to the White House. Whether you thought about it or not, President Obama had to know that she was operating outside of the guidelines, right? He had to know. He had to know. So, she's not going to go down because the whole method of this madness over the last 8 years has been predicated upon protecting, insulating the first black president from any type of harm that media or anyone else could bring his way. Now, Hillary got lucky here. Hillary can count her favors by him offering to her, or she and Bill negotiating, that she become the Secretary of State to the first black president. She, of course, not the first woman, but a woman who has presidential ambitions. Hey, she is safe. She's very safe. Because in order to bring her down, they must investigate the first black president too. And folks, I am telling you that we have let this get to a point where that ain't gonna happen. She's going to skate. Bernie Sanders had one thing right. Tired of hearing about your emails? Let me tell you why. Because it's beating a dead, and I do mean dead, horse. It's not going anywhere. We could have avoided it all. You could have. You could have avoided all this. We wouldn't be having this conversation if, that two-letter word, if we had elected Mitt Romney. Oh, she'd be going to jail. If we had elected Mitt Romney, but you didn't want to do that. For whatever reason, religious or otherwise, whatever reason. You didn't want to elect Mitt Romney. We wouldn't be having this conversation. And it would be an entirely different American history story if we had elected Romney. Now, we have an opportunity. And I know I'm hearing it from both sides. I'm buffeted on both sides. Wherever I go, I'm headed up to D.C. over the weekend and then on up to Chicago area again over the weekend. Got a lot of ground to cover once I leave this studio on Thursday evening. By the way, we will be preempted on Thursday by the NSU game. The show will air on Friday. But this is what I'm telling everyone that I see on the trail. You have to elect Trump if, in fact, you want anything ever to be done about Benghazi and about a miscarriage of justice when it comes to those emails. Because you let her, Hillary Clinton, get elected to office, the same protection mechanism, the same mechanism that protected Obama, will kick in and protect her too. The same emotional wave that surrounded President Obama being the first black president of the United States will certainly engulf and encompass the first woman president of the United States, and everything you say about her, against her, is going to be sexist. Yeah. The progressive liberals, they're playing chess and have been for 50, 60 years while we've been shooting marbles and playing checkers. And now when you see a fundamental change that is in fact transpiring, a lot of us like to turn to God about it. But he gave you your chance last election cycle to vote the current administration out. You always have your chance. You always have your choices. And America made hers. Friends, I'll be back at the top of the hour. I have a couple of ladies that are definitely on the side of right. They are on the side of right. And they are going to share with us an event that is coming up this coming Sunday that you want to be a part of. Vicki Whitman and Melissa Winnington, wives of Bossier City Marshal and Bossier Parish Sheriffs, will be in studio with me at the top of the hour. You want to be prepared for that. Don't go anywhere. I'm CL. CL, back with you on this Tuesday. After Labor Day, we're headed for the fall of the year. My favorite time of the year, and one of my favorite things to support is our men and women in blue, wherever they are, all around this country. You'll find me supporting our men and women in blue. And coming up in the next block, I want you to stay tuned for something that is very special. Be still, S-T-E-E-L, be still, and know that I am God. Oh, I like that. Sunday, 9/11. These two ladies, Vicki Whitman and Melissa Whittington, wives of Bossier Parish City Marshal and Bossier Parish Sheriff, will be here with me talking about what you could be and should be a part of on 9/11. You know, Jay, I'm going to be flying. I'm actually going to be flying on 9/11.
I bet it's one of the safest days to fly of the year.
It's got to be.
You know?
It's got to be.
It's got to be.
Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to even worry about it. But I just realized that. But anyway, folks, listen. We were talking here, and want you to let's get back to this topic before we, of course, bring in the ladies to talk about be still, and know that I am God. I like that. I like that. Because this is a time for people with steel in their spine. It's a time for men and women with courage. And our country now will not suffer weak-willed and lily-livered folks. I watch a lot of Westerns. Weak-willed and lily-livered. That's an old Western. But our country is in a situation where we need people with steel in their spine who will stand up even when it appears that you should wilt. And I got to tell you something. If no other presidential election, I've lived through quite a few of them now, has taught us the lesson of what's necessary to preserve the republic, and I got to tell you, and preserve the religious freedom that we have. This one is it. Heard it before. You've heard people say it before. But remember the coalition I was telling you about? The Progressive Liberal Coalition? The Progressive Liberal Coalition that is going to be formed up of progressive liberal gays, progressive liberal Latinos, blacks, environmental extremists. You'll have media. You'll have Hollywood. You'll have the uninformed. You'll have the young voter who's uninformed, and you'll have those who are chronically unemployed in that coalition. And you'll also have the forever needy. They're not necessarily forever needy, but they have been convinced that this is their lot in life. And they're going to be forever needy. You're going to have the illegal aliens in that coalition. You're actually going to have men in prison if they let them vote. I'm talking about people who have committed felonies. Not those who've done their time and have been released. I'm talking about people in jail who have committed felonies, that they're trying to form this type of coalition. And folks, I need you to know something. If in fact they are able to do this, which they are, it's coming together. You see the ones that I have just named. This will in fact end any type of recovery that we may have had, or chance of recovery that we may have had of securing America as it once was known, if they can bring about this type of coalition. It will be a voting bloc that is strong, could have avoided all this. And the thing about choices, is that you can make any choice you want. You have that God-given right to make any choice you want, but you don't get a chance to choose the consequences. No. You can make the choice, but you cannot choose the consequence of your choice, because now the choice is in the past. And I want to let you know something, that your choices at this point in time are incredibly important. That's why you can't stay home and go and vote. You can't stay home and not go and vote. Because if you do, that choice will have a consequence. Oh yeah. That choice will have a consequence. And so, what do we do? Where do we go from here? First of all, pay attention. Realize that there is a coalition being formed. And realize this, that the forever needy, the chronically unemployed, the illegal aliens are joining forces with the media. They're joining forces with Hollywood. They're joining forces with the uninformed voter. And their goal is to, in fact, carry out the fundamental change that has already been taking place in this country, to carry out that change. And folks, it is important that you understand you do make a difference. I'm going to be back with two ladies who I want you to meet. They are going to be sponsoring Be Still and Know That I Am God. Vicki Whitman and Melissa Whittington when I return. Don't go anywhere.
CL are both going to be on?
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back, and I am CL Bryant Show, and I want to thank all of you for having made us the most listened to talk in the Arklatex area. I want to thank you for that. Here in these last couple of years, the message has gotten out. Of course, we are streaming live throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America, our homeland, and so proud of the men and women in blue. As you know, I am a backer of the blue wherever I go. And joining me are the wives of two men who I know very well. And let me tell you something. These wives are about doing, I believe, the work of the Lord. Let me tell you why. Because there are people who are dedicated to protecting our city while you and I sleep peacefully in our beds at night, while the children are down the hall or upstairs sleeping in their beds peacefully. There are people who see the underbelly of a perilous society that we live in. And I have asked you over and over again, I'm asking you again now, to back the blue. There is something that Vicki Whitman, I don't get these W's twisted up here. Vicki Whitman and Melissa Whittington, the wives of Bossier Parish Sheriff and Bossier City Marshal. Both of them are here. And they are involved, and they will be sponsoring a venue, an event called Be Steel, S-T-E-E-L, and Know That I Am God. I want to welcome to the show Vicki, Melissa, welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Now, I'm going to start with you, Vicki. I'm going to start with you. Speak right there into the mic. Speak close into that mic. Tell us, Vicki, what is Be Still and Know That I Am God? What is that about?
Well, right now we're watching officers of all types of law enforcement out there on our streets, and sadly even fire department, who are becoming targets for no reason. So to put on that badge every morning and to walk out there and do that job, you have to be made of steel. To be a spouse of that person walking out of the house,
Wow.
you have to be of steel.
Yeah.
And so that is how, basically we came up with the name. Melissa saw steel and part of her vision. I said, that's great, that's great. So we kind of combined it and came up with the name of Blue Steel.
Melissa, tell us, Vicki, you touched on something that often civilians don't think about very often, and that is being the spouse, the family of an officer. Melissa, tell us about that aspect of it.
Well, it's a big responsibility for the spouse, because many times our husbands are out late at night. Some are on graveyard shifts, evening shifts, and the spouse becomes the major center point for the family. Get the kids where they need to be. When their officer is sleeping, they're still going throughout their day. So
Yeah.
and it's a very scary time right now for families of law enforcement, fire departments. Just a lot of public servants are.
Targets.
They are. It's like they have a little target on their back, and we don't, as a spouse, we don't really understand that. So that's where our faith comes in, so that we can stand during those times. And when we're standing, we have to be still and know that God is there.
Yeah.
But in this, we also have to be the blue steel, or the families of the blue.
Unbending, unyielding. When you think of
Correct.
steel, you think of something that is strong and something that is enduring. But there is a prayerful and, as you mentioned, a faithful side of what you're wanting to bring to the thinking and to the mindset of people who will join you in this. And when will this take place now?
It will be Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock at the Bossier City Memorial Liberty Garden. There's actually Pastor Andy Harris at the Church of the Cross gave us the idea of doing it there because it was 9/11.
Great preacher.
He's excellent. And there is a piece of the steel beam there from the Twin Towers. And so we took his idea of the time and the place, and we ran with it. Mayor Walker was very generous to us in allowing us to use it. And
Lo Walker's a great guy.
he's a great guy. So it's taken a lot of people to make this happen. It's not something you do by yourself.
No.
And so to all those out there who helped me, I appreciate it.
Absolutely right. Now, this I want to talk about this because I like to build those bridges to conversation. Now, back when you all were, let's just say, not yet married to your sheriff and your city marshal, did you ever think that you would come to a place, and I know you obviously have been rooted and grounded in the Word of God. There's no question about that. But did you ever think that you'd come to a place where you'd be this involved, this engaged in, because this is an everyday thing here now that we think about it. All Americans have this in their minds right now. Melissa, did you ever think?
Well, you'll laugh at what I used to tell him before we got married. I would say, now, if you're going to be a state trooper or a deputy, I don't want to get married. I don't want to do that. But, it's why we're trained never to say never, because God has a plan for us, and we just have to walk in faith through that plan. Of course, I stumbled a lot there for a while, but we got through it, and we grew into the people we are today because of the path that we took. So it's very hard to be a wife with little children, and your husband is working graveyards and evening shifts, and you don't get to see him because he's working all these hours. And so as a young married couple, it can be very challenging if you don't have your faith to stand on.
Vicki, is that the way it is with you? Tell us your story.
Well, when I met Jim, he was already stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base, so he was already serving our country. And so, when he got out of the service then, he returned to civilian life. He's had a couple of different jobs, from selling bread to, before he went to work for the marshal's office, he was a plant room supervisor for National Linen Service. So never did I dream in my wildest imagination that he would end up in law enforcement, and sure never came, the fact that he'd run for office and be elected Bossier City Marshal. So, yeah, it was not in our plans, but God always has the better plan.
And, there, as I was saying to you folks, there is a faith element in this. Do you look at your husband's job as a calling for them? And then, I've been a pastor, preacher over 35 years. And my wife, whether she wants to come along or not, I mean, and folks, this is what you don't understand about a pastor, a policeman's wife. This is a calling. Would you say that's what it is?
It
Without a
most
doubt.
definitely is.
I'm going to be back and I want you to stay right there. I want to pursue that thought just a little bit further, and I want to talk more about be still and know that I am God. And then there's something else, folks, that I want to mention that Sheriff Flournoy is doing here, and I'm going to let the ladies tell you about that on the same day that you want to be a part of as well. I also want to thank our sponsors, Chevyland, Grub Burger, Air Innovation, Mercer Tech, along with Red Wing Shoes, for sponsoring this segment of the C.L. Bryant Show. Be right back. CL. Tuesday in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport, and Bossier. I am your native son, broadcasting from those jewel cities, my hometown, my stomping grounds, Shreveport and Bossier. Let me get back to our conversation here. When we left, ladies, and I'm on with Vicki Whitman, and I'm on with Melissa Whittingham. And they have been sharing with us Jim Whitman and, of course, Julian Whittingham of Bossier, Whittington. Why didn't you jump in there and correct me?
Because I've been a teacher forever, and my name has been called all sorts of names. That's okay.
Julian, forgive me. But anyway, Sheriff Whittington and Vicki Whitman. I told you I get these W's twisted around.
W's are confusing.
And but Jim Whitman and Julian Whittington, City Marshal Jim, and then Julian is the sheriff there in Bossier. Their wives are with me today, and we were talking about when we left about the calling. And during the break, we talked about the calling. And, it struck me just how closely related this type of work is. It's also ministry. I never really looked at it like that. But it is being an officer who serves the community like they do, especially men of faith like these two men that I know do. It's ministry as well. So the calling is there, and the family's involved in that calling, regardless.
Definitely.
That's amazing. Tell us, Vicki, about another event that will be going on this Sunday.
Well, during the course of this, like I said, you meet a lot of people along the way, and I had an invitation to come to Sunflower Baptist Church because they had a Back the Blue type of affair, and I wanted to reach out to some black preachers to invite them to come and take part of this, and so I went, and in that course I met Lorenzo Johnson from Sunflower, who I've come to love. And as a matter of fact, Lorenzo's going to MC the program for us.
That's fantastic.
But I met another sweet lady there by the name of Sharon Flournoy. And Sharon is doing a Unity program also on September the 11th. She's going to do it at 5 o'clock p.m. at the Shreveport Convention Center. She has a lot of preachers, and I think Monsignor Provenzo is coming.
Yes.
They're going to have a lot of music, but it's going to be for unity. And Sharon said it best the other morning, on 9/11, when the event actually happened, we came together as a nation.
Yes, we did.
We came together, but here recently we've lost that togetherness, and it's time to put it back together.
I'm always amazed, Melissa, at how short our memories are, and I'm so happy that you have this type of, we have the memory that sometimes brings back why we were one.
That's right.
On this particular day and time. I'm hoping, ladies, that this is something that we can keep alive, not just on the days of memorial, but something, and Vicki, I think you may have plans to keep this fire, these flames fanned.
Something I would like to do, but, I had a picture on Facebook inspire me to do this. So what I would like to see happen is, we're doing this now for us to become an inspiration to somebody else, and they do it bigger and better, and it just, becomes a wave of its own. But, there's never too much prayer.
Very, very good. Now, Melissa, finally, what then should we pray for? Should we specifically, in your opinion, what specifically are we wanting to get out of this memorial and of this commemoration?
Well, I think unity is a huge part of this process, but also we're praying for the protection of these men in blue, in red, all the first responders. Of course, our heart is with the blue. That's why we picked the name Blue Steel to represent us. But it's about staying prayed up and knowing that our men and women in blue are covered in God's grace, to have wisdom in speaking with people, to have protection when they have to approach someone and they don't know what's to come.
And they don't.
But I think the reason Vicki and I felt very strongly to do this at the prayer garden was not only the things she's already mentioned, but that is City Hall, that is government, that is who represents us and protects us and serves our community. And I think it's important that we return the favor, so to speak, by praying for them. We can't stand in their shoes every day, but we can stand behind them and back them up.
Well, I want to thank both of you for coming here today. Now, I'm going to be announcing this and talking about this throughout the rest of the week. And by the way, folks, on Thursday, I will be preempted by the Northwestern game. But on Friday, I'll be talking about this again. All of our friends at our friend station promise, please talk about this as well. Let's do everything that we can to support this effort. Now, Vicki, tell us one more time what time it'll be, where it will be, and who are you expecting to be there? What are we wanting to accomplish?
We will start Sunday at 2 o'clock p.m. at the Bossier City Memorial Garden. It's the Liberty Garden. It will last less than an hour. I know I'm competing against the opening weekend of NFL football. But I'll have a lot of area pastors there, including Pastor Brad Jerkovich from First Bossier.
Good friend.
Andy Harris, Church of Christ. Church of the Cross. Ben Brewster from the Church of Christ.
When you talk about Pastor Harris, he's one pastor. He's a triple threat. He can preach, pray, and sing.
Oh, yeah.
He's a great preacher.
I talked about that today with him. Randy Harper from Bel Air Baptist and Pastor Dean from Pentecostals of Bossier. And we will have the pledge that's led by Anthony Hahn, a Bossier City fireman. A good friend of mine, Meredith Johnson, will sing the national anthem. And then we will have each pastor will come up there, say about 4 or 5 minutes of prayer. And then I have Sharon Flournoy's brother, Jocks Brook, and my good friend Christy Rhodes from the Simple Church. They're going to lead us in the song Every Praise.
Yeah.
And what a great song.
Oh, yeah.
And, then we'll close out. So it's not anything long, and it's just simply prayer.
Simply prayer. And then
prayer and praise.
Sharon Flournoy, hers will be at Sunflower? Or no, it'll be at the Civic Center.
No, Shreveport Convention Center.
Shreveport Convention Center at 5 p.m. on Sunday. Sharon Flournoy will be having a unity gathering. You want to be there as well. Join both of these venues on Sunday, 9/11, as we commemorate a tragic day in our nation's history, but a day that we can show unity with our men and women in blue. I'm CL. Be right back. CL. Here we are on this Tuesday. Tomorrow, we be in the middle of the week. And I tell you what, 111 days from the day that we celebrate the birth of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords in my belief system, Jesus Christ. Christmas, we call it. Thanksgiving, not far around the corner. And, of course, I want to thank Melissa Whittington and, of course, Vicki Whitman for being here today. And I want to encourage you to go and share with them on this Sunday. And it is going to be a wonderful, wonderful gathering. So be there and share with them. Coming up in the show, Nathan Miller. He's been on the show before, young Republican out there in California. He's got some news that you're going to want to hear. Actually, got fired. Oh, yeah. Got fired because of something that you should never get fired for. Not in America. He's going to tell you all about it when he comes on with us here in the next block. But I want to get back to this conversation that you and I were having before we left about the chronically unemployed, the forever needy, the uninformed young voter, sometimes the uninformed old voter. I don't know how you can live a long time without being uninformed about what's going on here in this country and the fundamental change that is taking place in this country. The coalition that's being formed between Hollywood, the media, and progressive liberals, red, yellow, black, and white. Progressive liberalism is driving a narrative in this country that even has in the ingredients, and I'll take your phone calls, 320-5335, 320-5335, if you want to talk about it here in the next hour. 320-5335, 320-5335 is the number to call, 318-320-5335. But the liberal media is driving a narrative that also includes attacking figures of authority. There's a coalition that includes that as well. And it is a coalition that is forming a voting bloc that is geared toward completing the fundamental change here in this country. You didn't believe it, I don't think, back then. We certainly didn't believe that somebody could bring it about. Even though Senator Barack Hussein Obama told you that that was going to be the end game. Well, here we are 8 years later. And the fundamental change is, in fact, in play. Now, 2 years into the Obama administration, it was placed on the field. And there were many of us grassroots people who stood up against it. We called all kinds of names, still are. Called all kinds of names for trying to combat it. We told people then what the results and what the effects of this fundamental change would be. And a lot of times, so many times, the liberal media, the progressive liberal media, they've demonized us. Oh, yeah. They made people call folks who were trying to ring the alarm bell all types of ugly names. But guess what? Here we are, 8 years later. And everything, every warning Every warning that we tried to give to this nation, it has materialized. Why? Not because you weren't warned. Oh, you were. America was warned what was going to happen. America was even warned about how this political system would materialize or come about, evolve to what it is right now. What we're seeing in the Hillary Clinton and the Donald Trump, that's an evolutionary. That's on the, if there's any form of evolution, you see it in politics and you see it in organized religion. There are certain evolutionary scales that they go through. Politics is not what it once was. Neither are politicians in so many cases. Not all, but neither are politicians in so many cases. There are some true Boy Scouts who really are statesmen, and they should be in the political arena. But also neither is the church what it once was. And not all preachers, certainly not all, because I am one, and I'm going to preach the uncompromising gospel, regardless of what anybody thinks about it. You ought to know that by what I talk to you about as far as my politics is concerned. There's prices to pay for telling it the way it is fundamentally written, the way the Constitution is fundamentally put down in the midst of people who want to change that. You pay a price when you want to defend that. You also pay a price when you want to defend certain tenets of core value principles that made America great. I'll be back with Nathan Miller because he's paying a price as well. I'm CL. CL back on this Tuesday here in the Arklatex area. We're waiting on Nathan Miller, and he's got a call from out there in California. I guess we got a long string across.
That's how it works, isn't it? You know,
across the
long way
nation.
away.
But anyway, hopefully he'll be with us here soon. And folks, there was a tweet that he placed there about Hillary Clinton. And of course, I told you that he is the young Republican, was the president of Young Republicans there in California. And got him in some hot water. I wanted to talk to him about that here tonight. But we'll get a hold of him here in just a little bit. But this is something, folks, that I do believe we need to pay attention to. And that is the violence that is going on throughout our nation. And listen, I know that it is not politically correct to say anything about illegal aliens. And I opened the show, part of my show opening, I want to say this. We don't want, and all of you, I've talked to Trump's camp. I've talked to the Reince. I actually have talked to Reince Priebus about this. And don't start tap dancing around being conservative. Are you hearing me? Because either this is how we have to go out on our shields here. Do you hear what I'm saying? Not being who we are as conservative, as the conservative party, that's Republicans, or it once was, has brought us to a place of non-effect. Hear me, friend. Not being who we are and trying to walk the middle line has brought us to a place of non-effect where you can't tell who to vote for. Give you for instance, here it is again. You have people who were going to vote for a socialist, Bernie Sanders. They're going to vote for him. But they're also saying that they can vote for the Republican, Donald Trump. Not because of what Trump believes, but because of the change that he represents. I can understand that. I can get that. I can understand that. But that also tells you something. It also tells you that people are not voting for principles anymore. Because there are no principles that Bernie Sanders represented that the Republican Party should ever embrace. But yet we have come to a point in America where you can actually have people who would vote for a socialist also vote for a Republican, not because of the principle, but because of the change they represent. Now, didn't we just 8 years ago get twisted? Our hands all twisted, feet all tangled up, and rolling down the hill to the mess where we are in now. We landed in this mess we are in now, talking about hope and change. Have we not learned a lesson about the messengers of hope and change? Do you know what actually brings about hope and change from generation to generation other than Scripture? Other than Scripture? The Constitution of the United States. Every generation, it's the tenets and the foundational principles that founded this country from generation to generation. It brings about the hope and change for that generation. So to fundamentally change what that is about, to fundamentally change what has made the country, what the country is built on, actually destroys any chance of hope and change. Because now you're putting your eggs in the basket of someone who talks about it, but doesn't actually know about it because they have not studied about it or have been a student of it. You may say, well, Obama was a student of a constitutional professor. Yes, he was. But he was one who wanted to destroy it. And the fundamental change that he was elected to do was to plant the seeds in the minds of young people, that coalition I was telling you about. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that on the other side of the break. Because there is one mistake that conservatives, grassroots people, Republicans, whomever you may be, there's one mistake you made when you were facing off with Barack Hussein Obama. I'm going to tell you what that mistake was when we return. I'm CL. Yeah. Today's music ain't got the same soul, Jay. Yeah, I like it. On the line with me now is a young man out on the left coast, California. And I want to welcome back to the show a familiar voice to you, Nathan Miller, who formerly the president of Young Republicans there in California. Nathan, welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, glad you're here. Now, man, I have gotten it on the grapevine that you have run into a buzzsaw with a tweet that you actually posted in regard to Hillary Clinton that may have caused you some blues. So tell us about it and let's talk.
Yes, I am now nationally notorious. Well, firstly, I'll preface, in this 21st century social media-based reality, context is completely irrelevant. You put something out there and you're in politics and your enemy can figure out a way to twist it and use it against you. They can and they will. But I did social media for the Riverside County Republican Party, and somebody with the Hillary Clinton campaign contacted the party on Twitter with a smart alecky comment that they're running out of these signs. Do we have any? And it's Republicans for Hillary. And it's, completely absurd that you would ask the Republican Party for that. It was clearly intended to be smart alecky. So I responded accordingly and said, no, we don't have any of those, but these are pretty popular. And it was a picture of a medieval hangman on a gallows that said ready for Hillary. And the rest is history.
So did they give you the axe over that?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of pressure put on my boss. To her credit, Diane Harkey works in the Board of Equalization here in California, which is an elected tax board. She was very combative in terms of the willingness to let me go. She wanted to keep me on, which I greatly appreciate. But in the end, it was the best for everybody. Just given the politics of the situation for her and a lot of folks, for me to resign from that position.
You were talking about the political correct climate, and I imagine that in California you have a much more correct climate, politically correct climate than you do here in Louisiana. I can pretty much with safety tell you that same action that you took here in Louisiana, Texas, probably would not have garnered the same reaction. But now you said something very, very interesting, that there is a tight wire, a tight rope that that folks are walking these days in places like California, places like even Wisconsin. I know that, and up in Iowa even, that you have to be careful what you say about Hillary.
It is a self-imposed tightrope by the Republican Party, because they've essentially allowed the Democrats and the left to define what our party is and what our party represents. In some cases, our establishment is responsible for a lot of it, but they've defined it and we've let it happen. And now, you got to admire the Democrats, right? They do something similar to this, and this is really, the tweet wasn't racist, it wasn't sexist, it's
no
crossing those lines. There's nothing illegal. It was just something that they took from arguably bad taste and made it. They said all kinds of things about it.
Yeah, what they had done, Nathan, they wanted, regardless of how you would have responded to them, they were looking for blood. And I guess, I don't know, it was just enough for them to make something out of. It was just enough. That's all that was.
Yeah, well, originally, if you look at it and you think about it, it was from the county party social media site. So their original intent was to attack the chairman and the party itself. And then when I accepted responsibility and let it be known that it was me, because I didn't want our party chairman to take the heat.
Right.
And then it made it a different story. But you got to admire the Democrats. They close ranks every time something like that. They do this stuff all the time. In fact, the leading candidate for governor here in California cheated on his wife, slept with his ex-best friend's wife, who was at the time his chief of staff when he was lieutenant governor, and that's Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
and now he's the number one contender for governor. How is that okay?
Hey, man, listen, that's okay.
Ranks and they protect themselves, but the Republican Party, they fold every time. So you got to ask yourself, how can the party establishment ask its people to take risks, to take the fight to the enemy, to go out there and be bold and stand up for your conservative philosophies, when the party itself will walk away from you and leave you hanging if you get into any kind of hot water, whether it's deserved or otherwise?
I had mentioned last year that what we would see in this presidential election would be a cannibalization of the Republican Party. And we eat our own. We eat anybody who might appear to be wounded in this party.
Right.
And you hit the nail on the head when you said that regardless of how wounded a progressive liberal or a Democrat might be, they're going to circle the. Bill Clinton survived it. And that's been, this isn't something they just started doing. This is something they have done for years, and that is protect their own. Can we learn a lesson from that?
He destroyed a 19-year-old intern's life. She's the butt of jokes left and right. She's an innocent girl that fell prey to a predator who happened to be the president of the United States at the time. People forget that, and it's all. And when they take that story, they try to make the context favorable for him.
Yeah, and the same thing with Hillary. I was saying this earlier, Jason, and on the other side, I want you to stay with me through a break. We got a hard break coming up, and I'm going to ask you to stay with me for about 4 minutes through a break. But I was saying this earlier, that Hillary Clinton's best fortune was not to have been Bill's wife, although that was a part of the deal, and not necessarily to become Secretary of State. As a woman Secretary of State, even though she wasn't the first, but to become the first black president's Secretary of State, because the progressive liberal media have been protecting him this whole time. I want to talk a little bit more about why Hillary has become Teflon and will be Teflon when we return with Nathan Miller. I'm CL.
Some cheap sunglasses.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
CL, back with Nathan Miller, formerly a young Republican there, and still a young Republican in California. It hasn't changed. But Nathan, when we left, I wanted to ask you. I want to get your input on this, because it seems to me that there are some things that Hillary Clinton should be going down for, but she's not. And I think that it is because she was the Secretary of State to the first black president of the United States, which pretty much makes her bulletproof, because he has been protected for 8 years from things that would have brought down any other president. Is there any validity in maybe that thought, in your opinion? Jason, we don't have him? He's still there? I don't know. But anyway, gee whiz, he was there. But anyway, see if we get him back. But folks, that's what I want to talk to you about. While we're working, you've been having trouble between here in California. It's those Russians, Jay. I'm telling you.
Hey, you said it, not me.
So those Russians, they're tapping into stuff that they're messing with stuff, and folks, you think I'm kidding, but they're actually finding out that the Russians may actually be hacking into, I think it's Arizona. And are you there, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, great.
I heard your question. I heard everything.
Go ahead and speak to that.
Yeah, I think she was definitely protected as the Secretary of State underneath Obama, but I wouldn't characterize her as absolutely bulletproof. I think if you look at what's happening in the media, people's perception of her, it's starting to wane. I think there was a poll done by CNN today that I wouldn't say that Trump is dominating or leading or on the rise, but it shows that there's definitely a race.
Yeah, there's a race now, yeah.
That she can walk away with. And I think people are fatigued with her. I think people are getting fatigued with backing her up, fatigued with coming up with excuses for her. And here's the biggest problem she's going to face. We saw it with a candidate named Meg Whitman that ran for governor here in California, and I'm not surprised that she supported Hillary Clinton. Her big downfall is she completely ignored the press. She refused to do press conferences, thought she could do her own press media events where it was just her pontificating. And in the end, they ended up crucifying her. And you see some of that going on right now with Hillary because, just like that picture where you see her sitting down in the corner of a coffee shop with her sunglasses on looking at her BlackBerry, that's how the press and that's how a lot of people perceive her. She's unapproachable, she's guarded, and people don't trust that. And I think it's starting to impact her, and she is her own worst enemy in that regard. Anything that the press would ordinarily do for her to protect her because of the whole Barack Obama factor and her being his Secretary of State, I think she herself is undoing.
In your opinion, Nathan, what must Trump do with this illegal alien? It seems as though they're trying to paint him as this way on Saturday, this way on Monday, and now this way on Tuesday. What must he do to be clear about where he stands, in your opinion?
I don't think you're going to see much change from Trump with regard to his stance on illegal immigration. I would say probably a lot of folks would agree that he could have taken a more articulate approach to the dangers of an open border, as opposed to saying something that can be taken as a blanket statement about people that are coming across the border. But he said it. That's the reality of it. I think to him and his campaign, he feels that the overshadowing reality of the dangers that the United States faces with an open border, and the fact that we live in this post 9/11 world where it's dangerous to have a border that terrorists can cross at any given time. Not to mention the fact that we have limited resources, no matter how much abundance we have here. And if you just have a porous border, eventually those resources can be quickly depleted. He's going to stick with that message, and I think he should. it works for him. I think that immigration is a much more nuanced issue, but it's really hard to get into the weeds with that because it's a black or white thing with people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the cooler heads don't prevail in that one.
No, and Ben Carson, I don't think did him any favors, saying that he said what he had to say while he was running for the office or the nomination, but then he's now seeing the reality and so forth. Regardless of what Ben may think about that, I would prefer that those types of pundits, Trump pundits, remain silent that way. Let him figure out how he's going to approach this himself, because the surrogates, especially, and I want to tell you something. I want to say this to you. I don't necessarily, I know Ben, but I'm not really sure that you have these people who are all in. I think they're leaving a door cracked in case they have to exit. And even in their statements, they're making these statements that, in my opinion, don't really help him. And if they want to help him, say it like you just said it. Just articulate what it is you need, he really stands for, and stick with it. That's what has to happen right now.
Right. Well, I agree. He definitely needs to stay the course with his message. The other thing he needs to do is take it directly to Hillary, right? We're going to have a debate pretty soon.
20 days.
Which will probably be the most televised debate, most watched event in history, at least in politics, and it might break more records because people will be on the edge of their seat for that one. And they're going to throw bait out at Trump. They're going to try to get him to get into a war of words with the moderators and attack moderators and say things that are off message. If he ignores them and answers the questions that he wants to answer and directs all of his ammo at Hillary and takes it directly to her, hits her on the issues where she's weakest and stands strong on his positions on strong national defense, those things that really concern people, I think he'll be in a good position after that debate.
Jason Miller, I want to wish you all the best. God bless and keep you. Thank you for being on with me. I'm CL.
Very much.
This is the CL Bryant Show. Back to wrap it up. Just a minute. Listen, folks. Yeah, the election is 63 days away. The debate, the first, and I'll tell you that debate is probably going to be more listened to and more watched than the Super Bowl. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's going to. Those of you who go back to my era, is going to be. It's anticipated as Ali Foreman. The rumble in the the rumble in the jungle, the battle in Zaire. It is as anticipated a fight as Ali Foreman. We'll see who does the rope-a-dope. But anyway, Fox News. Roger Ailes and Fox News has settled with Gretchen Carlson. The real story. Gretchen used to do a show in the middle of the afternoon called The Real Story. She files suit against Fox News' Roger Ailes, which actually led to him stepping down, for sexual harassment. Today we find that Fox News has settled with her for $20 million. Others were paid along in that settlement. I think Angela Tantaros was one of them. And it also, I see that Gretchen Carlson is leaving Fox. I bring that up, yes, for those reasons, and also bring it up for this reason. I believe that you are going to see the network itself change in ways that you never considered it changing. For a long time, it was the flagship of conservative news thought in news, in network, in cable news. Now that Ailes is gone, now there's Ailes may very well, obviously, is a rascal, because you don't give someone $20 million plus an apology. Oh yeah, Gretchen Carlson, she not only got the money, she got an apology. And you don't give somebody $20 million and an apology if, in fact, there was not a fire somewhere that happened to ring absolutely true. I'm not really sure how much of Bill O'Reilly you're going to be seeing in days to come. Haven't seen much of him. But there were, little things floating around on the wire about him, too. And, but I was going to tell you this. Roger Ailes may very well have been a rascal, and probably is a rascal, because $20 million in an apology. But he saw to it that the Fox brand, at least on the surface, what you could see, and I've done, I don't know how many interviews with Fox, and both their in station, I was on the very first mixed panel that Sean had there of black conservatives and so forth and so on, there live in New York City in his studios. But, and I've done many remotes with Fox. But Roger Ailes, at least on the surface, kept Fox in a vein of conservatism. That's going to change. And I believe that people like Sean Hannity, Eric Bolling, and maybe one more, Brett Baer will probably be your conservative commentators in a sea of moderate commentators. And then they're going to bring on more people like Geraldo. You know what that's about. I'm CL. Be back to close it out when I return. Don't go anywhere.
He ain't coming back. At a Tombstone bar in a juke joint car, he made it stop just long enough to grab a handle off the top. Next stop, Chi-Town, Leo put the money.
CL back to close it out. And I got to tell you something. Hey, look, understand what I'm telling you. There's going to be a marked difference in the way that Fox News presents itself here in the very near future. I'm going to continue doing what I do. I know Sean Hannity's going to continue doing what he does. People like him or not, Glenn Beck, he's going to continue doing what he's doing. Both of those guys, very good friends of mine, and I know their heart. I know that they are dedicated to the Constitution of the United States. I know that they are dedicated to conservative thought, and I know that they understand what has made this nation great and what can keep it great. They're about family, God, and country. God, family, and country. That's what they're about. That's what I'm about. And folks, unfortunately, in the heart of hearts of a lot of people, that's what most people in America are about, even though they haven't visited that place of themselves or in themselves so long that the other voices, the strange voices in the night that are leading us to a dark place in America, are actually dictating their actions. And if you, American, if you stop to examine yourself, this is the time right now that we should be examining ourselves as Americans. Do we even know what that means anymore? Has it just become a politically, racially, emotionally charged conversation that no one can have anymore with any type of rational thinking? Do you know what's at stake and what can be lost? Do you really know? Is there any sense in saying anymore that we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights? And among them is life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Well, I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day. And I want to thank Him for our men and women in uniform around the globe who defend our right to speak our mind. And until I'm able to talk to you again, I'm CL. And may God bless and keep you all.
And to the families left behind, we'll stand by your side. And the bond